Hello guys, you're watching Play It Right, and today we're gonna have a look at how to play Cerebria, the inside world. Cerebria is a fantasy world inside of a person's mind, and there's two opposing forces, bliss and gloom, controlled by the players, and it's basically a team-based area control game. The game starts with Cerebria being a blank slate, and the goal for the two competing forces or teams is to shape the identity of Cerebria to either Bliss's or Gloom's image. In the middle of the board, you have the monument of this identity, which is built from the ground up during the game, and the blue fragments of it belong to Gloom, and the red ones belong to Bliss. The bigger fragments are called major fragments, and the smaller ones, minor fragments. These fragments are added during events called revelations, about which we're going to talk later on. So let's see how the world of Cerebria looks like. There are 5 realms that can be controlled by either Bliss or Gloom, the state of which changes constantly depending on the cards placed in them, representing emotions. The same holds for the 5 frontiers that exist between the realms. Each realm consists of 2 slots, and each frontier consists of 3 slots. The inhabitants of the world of Cerebria are the emotions, and the spirits, controlled by the players, act through them. The spirits move around the board on these slots, which allow them to affect the emotions adjacent to them and contribute to controlling Cerebria's realms and frontiers. The emotions are drawn from each spirit's own emotion deck, and each deck contains only Bliss or only Gloom emotions, depending on the spirit it belongs to. There are 2 types of emotions, mild and strong. Each player's deck consists of mild emotions, but they can be upgraded to their strong counterpart. The most important attributes of an emotion card are its intensity and its vibe. The intensity is the numeric values on the cards, and the higher intensity an emotion has, the more efficient it is in controlling the realm or the frontier it is on. The vibe is shown in these symbols that have different colors. They represent different subtypes of emotions, and they play a role in the actions that the spirits can do, which we will see later on in detail. Before I move on to the actual gameplay and the structure of the game, I have to talk first about 3 very important concepts of the game: willpower, essence, and fortitude. The essence is the life force required to sustain an emotion, and in order for an emotion to occupy a slot in the board, it needs to have at least 1 essence. The essence for Gloom emotions is represented by these blue stones, and the essence for the Bliss emotions by the red ones. The willpower and the fortitude constitute the main currency of the game. Each spirit spends 1 fortitude, symbolized by the lightning, for each action they perform, and it is counted on a dial. The dial is shared between allied spirits, so there is 1 dial for the Bliss team and 1 for the Gloom team. The smaller dial is used as a turn counter. Willpower is the driving force behind the spirit's actions, as each action has an associated willpower cost indicated by this purple circle. Each spirit has its own willpower reserve, and when they spend willpower, it goes to the general reserve. Willpower is gained primarily from the Origin's spheres. The Origin is the source of all energy in the world of Cerebria, and it holds the identity monument. So let's talk about the flow of the game. A game of Cerebria is played in a maximum of 5 rounds, each round consisting of a number of turns alternating between the different sides, Bliss and Gloom, until both sides have exhausted all of their fortitude for the round. At the end of each round, each team resets the fortitude dial, which increases by 1 every round. The game ends at the end of the 5th round, and then the points scored are counted to see the winner, or it ends immediately if Bliss or Gloom has managed to score all 3 of their major fragments. Let's see what you can do during your turn. Each player must take 1, 2, or 3 spirit actions during their turn. There are 2 categories: the main board actions and the spirit board actions. The spirit board actions allow you to move a spirit, invoke an emotion, quell an emotion, and do meditation. All 4 of the spirit board actions have 4 potential upgrades each. The way to do an upgrade on a spirit board action is by discarding 1 emotion card from your hand, and you get an upgrade token matching the vibe of the emotion discarded. Important note is that all the upgrade slots of the same action must be covered with different vibes. An upgrade always takes place before the respective action and only then, so it affects the action right away. The upgrades do not follow a specific order, so you may start with whichever you want. In order to use an upgrade after you've placed it, you may need to spend some additional willpower, as indicated on the top rightmost part of some upgrades on the spirit board. The first spirit board action we're going to see is the move spirit action. The move spirit action allows you to move your spirit to an adjacent spirit slot on the board if there isn't an opposing spirit occupying the spot. This action costs 1 willpower and 1 fortitude, as all of the actions, and the upgrades available for this action allow you to move further up to 2 more slots, and your move in a slot with an opposing spirit, and get a refund of 1 willpower at the end of the round. The invoke emotion action costs 2 willpower and allows you to place an emotion card from your hand to an empty emotion slot adjacent to your spirit. You also need to immediately place the minimum required essence on the emotion, which is usually 1 for the mild emotions, and is indicated in the red shaded area at the background. So you need to have enough essence on your reserve in order to do that. The intensity of an emotion is always the rightmost non-empty essence slot, so in this case it's 1. When you invoke an emotion, the control of a frontier or a realm may change. Before I move on with the rest of the actions, it's important to talk about how the control of the realms and the frontiers works and how the game defines adjacency. The control of a realm and the control of a frontier do not work exactly the same way, but as a general rule, it depends on the total intensity of bliss or gloom emotions influencing that frontier or realm. At all times, the side with the highest total intensity controls it. In case of a tie, the realm or the frontier is neutral, so neither side controls it. Control changes immediately as soon as the total intensity tips over in either side's favor, and you have to have the according control marker placed at all times. This side if bliss currently controls this frontier, the flip side is for gloom, and this marker is for the control of the realm for bliss and for gloom. In this frontier, for example, the total intensity for bliss is 3 and for gloom is 2, so it's controlled by bliss. Realm control is a bit trickier. All emotions on a realm's 2 slots are influencing it at all times, but emotions on the frontier slots adjacent to these realm slots also influence the realm, as long as the adjacent realm slot is not occupied by an emotion of the other team. This makes the middle frontier slots a good place to influence 2 realms at once. But eventually the influencing emotion might get surrounded by emotions of the other team, which essentially lock it out from influencing the adjacent realm. In this realm, for example, this emotion of the middle frontier slot does not influence the total intensity of the realm, but this one on the other side, it does. The total intensity for each side is 2, so the realm is neutral. About adjacency, the general rule is that spirits can only interact with origin spheres and emotions if they are adjacent to them. Spirits on these kind of slots are adjacent to 2 origin spheres and the middle frontier slot. Spirits on these kind of slots are adjacent to this origin sphere and the 2 slots of the realm. So continuing with the invoke emotion action from the spirit board actions, you have to always invoke an emotion on an empty emotion slot adjacent to your spirit, like I just explained. Upgrades for this action allow you to bolster the invoked emotion with one additional essence from your reserve, or do that from the general reserve. You could also get a refund of willpower or upgrade a mild emotion with its strong counterpart. For example, fear, which is a mild emotion, when reaching an intensity level that has this icon, can upgrade to panic. You simply discard fear and put the new card down, transferring the essence. There is also the Quell an Emotion action, which costs 2 willpower and allows a spirit to remove the rightmost essence from an adjacent hostile emotion, with the vibe matching the vibe token of one of the quelled vibe upgrades of this action. If like that the emotion has lost all its essence, you remove it from the board, put it in the discard pile, and the owner draws another card. The Quell action can only be used once you have at least one quelled vibe upgrade. And last one from the spirit board actions is the meditation action, which doesn't cost any willpower. Each player can do the meditation action only once per round, so up to a maximum of 5 in the entire game. During the meditation action, you choose an adjacent origin sphere and take from it 1 willpower by default, plus 1 additional willpower for each controlled frontier adjacent to your spirit. If an origin sphere is emptied, then a revelation event is triggered and resolved, but more about this in a second. The meditation also gives you a bonus depending on the origin sphere it was done. Each origin sphere has a different meditation bonus. At the end of the meditation, you rotate the origin 1 slot clockwise. The upgrades for the meditation action allow you to take additional willpower, or choose which origin bonus to receive, or to rotate the origin before taking the willpower from a sphere. The players can do also another type of actions during their turn. They're called main board actions, and they are associated with each of the 5 realms of Cerebria. These actions are printed on these double-sided tiles in front of each team, and each side of these tiles shows their current willpower cost. It is always cheaper by 1 willpower to perform these actions if your team controls the realm associated with the action. So for example, if my side controls this realm, I can use this action to draw 2 emotion cards, from which I keep 1 and discard the other without paying any willpower. The other side shows that I would have to pay 1 if my team didn't control that particular realm. One important specification is that you don't need to be in a specific realm in order to use the actions associated with them. And also, don't forget, you always need to spend 1 Fortitude to perform any action. There are also some sort of goals in the game called Aspirations. The common aspiration cards in the purple deck are eligible for either team to claim a victory on them, and there are also 2 more decks, the Secret Aspirations, for each of the teams. Each of these 3 decks contains 7 different types of aspiration cards, each corresponding to accomplishing a different aspect of a dominance over the world. The aspirations can be about which team controls more realms than the other, which team has the most spirit upgrade tokens in total, the longest uninterrupted chain of friendly emotions, and many more. And this brings us to the revelations. A revelation is triggered immediately when a sphere origin is emptied. When that happens, the players check the common aspiration card, which is face up, and determine if it's accomplished by bliss, gloom, or neither side. The same happens with the secret aspiration cards from each side. Then, based on these 3 aspirations, each side may score a fragment. If a side accomplished 2 aspirations and the other side 0, the winning side scores a major fragment of their color. If a side accomplished 2 aspirations and the other one only 1, the winning team scores a minor fragment, and the same happens if one side scores 1 and the other 0. If the score was 1-1, each team scores a minor fragment of their color. You place the scored fragments to the identity in the middle of the board on top of each other. You also make sure that the symbol on the fragment placed faces the sphere just emptied, as from now on that sphere will grant 1 additional time the origin sphere bonus to the team who scored that fragment. to complete the revelation event, replenish the willpower of the emptied sphere, adding 1 additional willpower for each major fragment facing it, and deal a new common aspiration card and 1 new secret aspiration card per team. Each spirit has its own special ability. For example, Malice can do some sort of soul leeching. When he does a quell action, he can gain 1 essence by paying 1 additional willpower. Each emotion has its own ability as well. For example, Jealousy, a gloom emotion, gains 1 essence whenever a bliss fragment is scored. We're gonna see how to set up a 4-player game, and I'll walk you through an example of how a turn goes. We've set up the board. Every player has chosen a side and a spirit. We have the matching spirit boards, the emotion decks according to the rulebook, the strong emotion deck within reach, all the action tiles, and the Fortitude dials. My team, the Gloom team, has received a secret aspiration, same for the Bliss team, and we open a common aspiration card. Since it's the same with our secret aspiration card, I have to shuffle it back and take a new one. Now from the remaining aspiration cards, we set aside a random common aspiration card face up and a random secret aspiration for each team face down. These will be the end game aspirations, which are scored at the end of the game in 1 last revelation and which correspond to placing a potential top piece fragment to the identity monument. The starting resources for each player are 4 willpower, 2 essence, and a starting hand of 3 emotion tiles. You randomly choose which side will begin the game, and the other side gets 1 willpower per player as compensation. Before the game starts, a player from each side, alternating, beginning with the non-starting side, places the spirit on a slot next to the origin, and then places the brightness emotion, if they are bliss, and the bleakness emotion, if they are gloom, which are some special starting emotions and an essence on them from the general reserve. For this initial action, they have to place them on a realm slot adjacent to the frontier. In this realm, nothing changes. It is still neutral, but the frontiers get controlled, and over here this realm and frontier are controlled by bliss and these by gloom. Then 1 player from the starting team can start doing their actions, possibly according to their strategy around the current aspiration cards. As the starting player, I choose to go for some upgrades that will allow me to do more complex actions in the turns to come. Since Gloom controls this realm, I can perform this main board action for free, and I gain 3 willpower. I move the Fortitude dial 1 down, and then my next action would be to invoke an emotion. But first, I want to enable an upgrade so I can bolster the invoked emotion. I discard this card, place the upgrade token with the same vibe on it, and pay 2 willpower for the base invoke action, plus 2 to place 1 extra essence on it. And I spend 1 more Fortitude for my action. I'm allowed to do 1 more action, but I don't want to spend too much Fortitude too soon because I'm sharing it with my teammate, so I end my turn there. Then it's the opposing team's turn, and turns alternate until there is no Fortitude left to spend. Since each player can do the meditation action only once per round, it is possible to have a whole round without any revelations triggered. But as the game progresses and there are more fragments added to the identity, and the players can claim more willpower from the origin spheres, you could also have more than 1 revelations happening in the same round, which makes the game unpredictable and exciting. If the game didn't end already by 1 team having scored 3 major fragments, then at the end of the 5th round, each team reveals all 3 endgame aspiration cards. And if any kind of fragment is scored, the top piece fragment of the according color is placed. In case of a tie, no top piece is placed, and then you count points to see the winning team. 2 points per minor fragment, 3 points per major fragment, 4 points for the top piece, 1 point per fully upgraded spirit action, 1 point per strong emotion, 1 point per emotion maxed out in essence. And the team with the most points wins the game. In case of equal points scored between the teams, then Cerebria is in complete balance and the game ends with a tie. So that was Cerebria. Thank you guys for watching and I hope you enjoy playing the game.